YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about seahorses, a slightly different side of the marine hobby. It often gets overlooked and not as much attention as it deserves. Jack's going to be unboxing a heap of new seahorses that have just arrived in the shop today, so we're going to show you how they get packaged and how we're going to be floating them in this tank here to release them. And then we're going to talk about all of the care and maintenance tips associated with seahorses and the considerations that make them just a little bit different in the marine hobby.
Just received this box of seahorses. We're going to unpack it. As you can see, it's a little bit different to most other boxes that you may have seen aquariums receive. This one's wrapped in like a foil bubble wrap, just for extra insulation, because the seahorses come from a very cold part of Australia. So let's get unboxing. Good. So a little barbarize. And some kudas. Some more barbari. And these are all called ready seahorses. Some bigger ones there. Some seahorses. Okay, so some of you might be wondering, especially with a lot of reef viewers here, can I put a seahorse in my reef tank? The short answer is not really. So seahorses are very fragile, delicate little critters. They do need a very low flow, otherwise they end up in overflows, they end up in wave makers, and you can all guess how that ends up for the poor seahorse. Also, another reason why they don't do well in reef tanks is most reef tanks have other fish which outcompete for the seahorse's food very easily. Seahorses are very slow to their food. Even our Nazaria snails sometimes outcompete for their food. So the competition's another reason why. Also, coral will try and will sting a lot of the seahorses. And seahorses have a very sensitive skin, as you call it. Basically every coral will try and eat them. Corals that are an exception are xenia, zoanthids, some morphs, any leather, all those softer corals that don't usually pose a risk in competing for space in your regular reef tank will be generally okay for seahorses. Things like elegances, helios, hammers, anemones are a big no-no with seahorses. They will end up eaten and the seahorses will die from being stung or eaten. So that's in terms of compatibility. Generally, what I'd recommend if you are a reefer and want seahorses, maybe look at getting a smaller tank that you can plumb into your main system. That way you're not overloading and drawing a lot more power. All you're really doing is adding an extra manifold to your return pump, and then you can run a slow flow through the seahorse tank. You can even run it as a refugium tank, because you can grow a lot of macroalgae and seaweeds with the seahorses because they don't sting the seahorses. The seahorses actually appreciate that structure to hold on to as well. So there's a option there to be able to add them into your system. As far as food goes, we feed these guys frozen brine and frozen mysis. To my knowledge, we've never had seahorses that eat pellets, and I've never seen seahorses that eat pellets. So another thing and part of their care is you can't necessarily go on holidays very easily because you have to feed them those foods. And we usually feed ours 3 to 5 times a day on those types of foods. They, believe it or not, even though they're very slow and sluggish creatures, they have a very fast metabolism. so process these frozen foods very quickly. Especially nowadays with the low nutrient content frozen food has, we need to feed a lot more of it in order to keep the seahorses' nutrition health in check. So the setup of the tanks for the seahorses, you notice is a little bit different to a traditional reef tank. There are no wave makers in there. The flow from the return pump is very slow into the tank. It's blowing out here. The chains in the tank is more for the seahorses to hold on to. Also, they lose colour if they're in a very dull tank. So the yellow chains help keep their yellow coloration. They will blend very quickly in the course of a week or two into their surroundings and just adapt their whole colour. So Cuda seahorses in particular, when they come in orange, yellow, black, brown. We've had them in a dull tank before, and a week later you've got all black and brown seahorses, no yellows or orange left. So the scenery in the tank is very important if you want to manipulate the colour of the seahorse.
And this chain is made out of plastic, that's why it floats upwards naturally.
So the plastic chain in there, I just got that from a $2 shop, and it's just cable tied at the bottom to some of the real reef branching rocks. So the real reef branching rock's another bright piece of aquarium ornament that seahorses can latch onto. It's a natural surface, it's porous, so with the high feeding schedule, the porous media will help basically grow bacteria to break that down as well. There's some fake seagrass in there too. Also the cleanup crew with the seahorses is really important. As I mentioned before, Nazaria snails to clean up all the leftover shrimp that float to the bottom. So you're not going to have flow that just picks that up and carries that around. Basically it will just sink and sit there. The seahorses don't eat it, it will rot if you don't have an efficient cleanup crew. Shrimp are often not a very good option for seahorses either, because they'll actually, when the male or female has eggs, the male has eggs and babies, the peppermint shrimp and red line cleaners and things will reach into the pouch and grab out and eat all the babies and eggs. So that's not really helpful in the tank either. So I would stick to snails. If snails really aren't your thing, maybe hermit crabs, but I would probably stick to the snails. They're a lot safer and less intrusive and aggressive. So if you are looking at keeping seahorses, always keep a pair or more. The main reason being, if you just have females, they cannot really get rid of their eggs, so they'll become egg bound and then die. So yeah, you just want a pair in your tank. You can keep just males, but it's probably better to have pairs or pairs in your system together. As far as I'm aware, all the species can be kept together. There's no real aggression or anything between the species. Just bear in mind the adult size of each species that you're looking at. The Barbari is what I'd recommend for the smallest, smaller tanks. They're little yellow guys that are floating around everywhere here. They stay the smallest. They're also called zebra-nosed seahorses as well, if you wanted to look them up. So yeah, they're the smallest. And then you've got probably the Cudas, the second smallest. So the Cudas are some of the brown ones that are floating around in here. There's a couple of flecks with orange and yellow in them as well. The reddies are the really dark black ones here. They can also develop really beautiful maroon and like silver banding. They get quite large. And then the other species we have in here is the sub-elongatus, which is a WA species. They're the larger guys in here. So they're the only wild caught seahorses we have. Every other seahorse in this system is captive bred.
So with the marine side of things, we're all well aware that marine fish can sometimes come with parasites like Cryptocarya neurotins or ick, and other things like velvet or flukes, and there's all kinds of things that as reefers we're all very familiar with. Are any of those considerations relevant to seahorses?
Yes, so seahorses can carry crypto in their gills. You don't often see it on their body because they have a very different body to fish. But the gills is where you'll have crypto on any fish. Some fish will look clear, but they'll still probably have crypto in their gills, because the gills is where the most blood is, the most easily accessible blood. Especially if fish are breathing in water, they can breathe in the parasite and then it attaches to their gills, and then, yeah, so that's the prioritized place for crypto to reside in. So yes, seahorses can carry crypto and velvet and things like that. The seahorses in the shop are the only things only fish or livestock that we sell that we don't tank transfer. The reason being is because of their high diet and requirement with feeding, just can't possible to tank transfer them for us, just because of the time constraint and the water constraint. It is possible at home, especially if you're doing 1 or 2 seahorses, but to do like 50 seahorses in a tank is going to be very hard work, constant water changes. So they're the only product, I guess, that we don't tank transfer. The other thing to look out for with seahorses is they're particularly prone to bacterial infections. The captive bred ones are less so than the wild caught, but they're still both very prone to bacterial infections. So just keep an eye out for white patches and things on the actual seahorse's body. That's usually a dead giveaway of bacterial infection, in which case I'd look at a treatment like trisulfur or any other antibiotics that are on the market. Most of the antibiotics are relatively reef safe, just will have detriment to your biological filter, so just bear that in mind as well.
Alright, so I hope you guys found that really helpful. If anyone keeps seahorses out there, please post your experiences in the comments down below. I'd love to know more and see what people's thoughts on them are. But my name is Marcus.
I'm Jack.
You've been watching the Reef YouTube channel. Bye for now.